Not talk about, okay. Hey, everybody. I am Margaret. I am your fearless user group leader. Shoving my computer right here. Okay. Okay. You found us, but we're on Meetup and we've got a lovely website that's built to amplify. Join us. We have a Slack invite that is currently broken, but we do have a Slack group. We hope to do monthly meetups. We were really going strong before the pandemic and then life. So if you're interested in hosting, sponsoring, speaking, let us know. Because some rules about the group, we are community focused. We are an AWS user group. So we're a group of users. We are not associated with AWS, but sometimes usually lovely people from AWS come and present or sponsor. But we are really focused on user stories, user groups, no sales. The other rule is cream. Cash rules every AWS meetup. So if you want to sponsor an event, that's totally fine. We give you like 2 to 5 minutes at the beginning, do a sales pitch, do a demo, talk about jobs you have, and then you can put your name on the event. We can promote your group, but then the content is always user focused, vendor free. So no sales pitch, we promise. We also have a code of conduct. It is TLDR, be excellent to each other. Up next, on March 20th, we're going to do FinOps. If you watched Warner's keynote, he talked about the frugal architect. So we're going to talk about FinOps and cost optimization in cloud more later. We're working with pre-FinOps foundations. You don't have to be a member, but if you want to be, I think there are going to be some perks. It's going to be like a real event, hopefully with more than just pizza. We'll see. And then June 13th, we're going to do a community day in the Midwest in Columbus, Ohio this year. So we did it in 2022 in Columbus, and then we were here in Chicago last year. We're going back to Columbus next year, who knows, somewhere in the Midwest. So plan your schedules. All right, because you listened to that, here's the Wi-Fi code. And I previewed it before, but we're in this area called the drum. If you go through the glass doors to the elevator, you will be locked out. So go around to get to the little Tea Point kitchenette. There's coffee, soda, water, nitro, coffee on tap. Also, the women's bathroom is kind of that way and the men's is right that way. If you need to badge in, find somebody from Morningstar, Krishnan from Morningstar, me. But if you need help, just flag us down. Here's my terrible floor plan. You're here, go around. All right. I had slides just in case nobody wanted to talk, but my big takeaway is like Gen AI, it's hot right now. Go learn about it. There's lots of free stuff online, including Amazon Machine Learning MLU. They have lots of free courses. There's Skill Builder. Just get up to date. And then Frugal Architect, Warner's keynote. If you didn't watch it, watch it. It's entertaining. It's also worthwhile. Oh, and Party Rock. So I think it's partyrock.aws. It's the Gen AI playground. They're also doing a hackathon right now. So you can build stuff, you can find a team, you can build an app. It's pretty cool. And cool. We've got some solution architects from AWS who are local to Chicago here to give you all the actual recap. So thank you folks for joining. I will stop talking.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing.
Sorry, just say
Your microphone's in the ceiling, so project.
yes, but I want to play.
Oh yeah, so when you share, it
I'm gonna do
should.
that. Yeah, there's a share audio as well. Did you hit the little checkbox for share audio? Let's move. And is it
We
video?
have a video with audio, so this is going to be the hardest, most technically challenging part of the night. I'll see if it works. Are you starting with the video? Or is it in the middle? When's the audio? When's it? Okay.
No,
This controls thing, so we can come like touch
if
it.
it doesn't work, I will describe it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone.
And thank you for joining today's meeting. My name is Mehdy Haghy. I'm Senior Solution Architect and AI/ML Specialist. I've been with AWS for almost 2 years, and I support enterprise customers in retail industry. Today, we are going to do a recap for reInvent, and I will cover generative AI and AI/ML topics. Before we get started, can you tell me how many of you are using generative AI on a daily basis? How many of you have used Gen AI in the past couple of months? Great. So we have the perfect audience for this topic. Interesting. Yeah. Now they're pushing updates.
Oh, Mehdy?
Yeah.
You want to slide forward?
Yeah, it didn't work. So this is the agenda. We will talk about generative AI stack and how it works on AWS a little bit. And then we will cover Amazon Q, the expert chatbot that we have, and we talk about Amazon Bedrock, how we can develop and use Amazon Bedrock. Also, we talk about Amazon SageMaker updates, and in the end, if we have time and we get a chance, we'll talk about generative AI integrations in different services. So we have a 3-layer stack for AI, ML, and generative AI in AWS. At base layer, we have the infrastructure that enables us and our customers to do data preparation, training the models, doing the experimentation on the models, and deploying it into production. And in order to help our customers, we have purpose-built chips that are optimized for training and inference. One big announcement that we had this year was announcement of Trainium 2nd generation. The Trainium 2 is 4 times faster compared to previous generation. Why it is important? Because it allows our customers to train the models with hundreds of billions of parameters, or even over 1 billion parameter on Amazon SageMaker. So that's kind of prerequisite when you are working with very large language models, and Amazon SageMaker and our infrastructure enable you to work on large language models. Also, we have a lot of updates on SageMaker. We have a separate section about SageMaker specifically. But let's talk about top level, Amazon Q. Basically, Amazon Q is our generative AI assistant, and it has different domain expertise that are optimized for each domain. And the way that it works is that it can connect to your data sources, and you can have conversation based on with the large language models based on your own data. When I'm talking about your data, you might think about a database, but Amazon Q can connect to different types of data stores. For instance, all of us have information on Google Drive, Azure OneDrive. We might have some information in our ticketing system on Zendesk, on Confluence. Some of the data might be just in databases. So when we are talking about data stores, Amazon Q can connect to all of these different data store types and index the data in it and bring the necessary data to the Amazon Q for having that conversation. A big problem in building solutions for based on large language models is building this data pipeline. So Amazon Q will take care of that, and it will connect to data where it is still when it sits. And it's optimized for different domains. The first one is Amazon Q Business Expert, meaning that you can connect it to different data stores, as I mentioned. The second category is building on AWS. We have a builder expert that can help your developers to write the code and also transform the code, review the code, so they can have conversation based on their code with the large language model. And it improves the performance of your developers based on a study that McKinsey performed. It can increase their performance by 28%. So this is kind of dependent on your code base and how your developers work, but you can see improved performance of your in your development cycle with Amazon Q Builder. We have Amazon QuickSight. We will show a demo of Amazon's QuickSight, and also we have Amazon Connect, which can connect to your phone system based on Amazon Connect, and it can provide live suggestions to your agents in the phone system. So for instance, you have new agents in the phone system and they are using Amazon Connect. It listens to the conversation, and based on the conversation, it can provide suggestions and provide the links to content for the agent. So it saves a lot of time for onboarding new agents and also taking actions when needed in Amazon. Actions are needed in Amazon Connect. And the last one is Amazon Supply Chain. Basically, it integrates with our supply chain. It can do kind of what if analysis, capacity planning analysis, or different types of conversations with your supply chain with AWS supply chain, Amazon Q integration. Okay, so let me play a quick video demo of the builder experience with Amazon Q. So Amazon Q for builders will look
We're
like
adding
this.
Powerful assistant to your IDE via Code Whisperer to make it even better. When you use Amazon Q's conversation panel in Code Whisperer, Q combines its deep AWS knowledge with an understanding of your code. It's like giving it additional superpowers. You're unfamiliar? We're adding this powerful assistant to your IDE via Code Whisperer to make it even better.
I
When
think
you
it's
use
not
Amazon
audible.
Q's conversation panel in Code Whisperer, Q combines its deep
Basically,
AWS
user
knowledge
can
with an
ask questions
understanding of your
about the
code.
code. One of
It's
the
like
hardest
giving it additional superpowers.
development life.
You're unfamiliar with the code in the IDE? Amazon Q can explain it to you. Your code doesn't work because you've got a bug?
So one of the hardest jobs that we have is reading other people's code to find out what they were trying to do. So you can ask Amazon Q for builders to review the code and find out what is the functionality of the code, or it can do security review or other types of reviews on your code. We have other tools for helping developers like Code Whisperer, but they are for writing new code. This one can help you transform your code, review your code. For instance, developers can use it to transform their code from older versions of Java to newer versions. So you can find it very useful for upgrading existing software solutions. The other thing is that it is integrated with popular IDEs like Visual Studio Code or PyCharm or other JetBrains solutions. So you can use it in a favorite IDE that you are using for software development.
Let's take a look at how business analysts and end users
more
can
audible.
harness the power.
So for QuickSight, all of us have some dashboard somewhere that we don't want to update. It's not worth it. So what if we had a tool that can create new dashboards for us with just pointing it to a data source and then describing what we want in the dashboard, and this is it. The Amazon Q for QuickSight can get the description from you and build the dashboards based on your description. It can it can even create summaries of your data based on these reports and share it with other users on your system.
Let's take a
Let's
look at
watch.
how business analysts and end users can harness the power of generative BI. We'll start as an analyst, creating a new sales dashboard. We can use the new Generative Visual Builder from QuickSight Q to create the visuals we need using simple natural language. To create a visual, I just describe the data I want to see. I can easily change chart types or add analytics such as a forecast. Let's build a couple more. Let's do sales by product by city. And let's create a breakdown of regional sales by segment as a Sankey diagram. Each visual we create is interactive and completely customizable, the same as if you built it from scratch. Generative BI can also be used to create calculated fields. Just describe what you want to calculate. Let's do month over month, free trial, percent change by date, so we can analyze the delta in trial signups over time. Once we save this calculation, the data is ready to use. Let's check it out. I'll create a new visual that combines order date and the field we just made. To polish this visual, I'll use the generative editor to describe the changes I want. Let's change the date granularity to month, add color by region, and change the chart type to a vertical stacked bar. Looks great. The dashboard is ready to publish.
Okay, as you can see, we can build dashboards and report in minutes instead of spending days and even weeks in building reports. We talked about using Amazon Q in Connect and real-time insights. You can see that when user is talking over the phone, it can provide the solutions based on the conversation. And then also it can provide some additional links at the bottom to further reading if needed. So Amazon Q sounds to be perfect. You don't need to write any kind of code. It's fully managed. It can connect to your data sources. It has guardrails that can protect you from creating unwanted types of content. So it sounds perfect. Why we need other solutions? The reason is that Amazon Q is trying to give you the most relevant answer based on data sources, but it has multiple models underneath, under the hood, that provide the answer. What if you need more control over the content generation? What if you want to use a specific model? Also, Amazon Q has a named user licensing model. What if you want to provide the service to tens of thousands of users on a public-facing website? When you want to have a more flexible solution, you can use Amazon Bedrock. Amazon Bedrock is an easiest way to get access to popular models on through an API. Basically, what it does is it is hosting Amazon models and a few models from popular AI startups. You can get access to this API through REST requests like any other API, and we will take care of the scaling, the security, the data control, and everything that is needed to everything needed in the process. The biggest and popular models that we have right now on Amazon Bedrock are the Llama 2 from Meta, and also Anthropic's Cloud 2. But right now, we have over 20 different models on Amazon Bedrock. So you can pick and choose between different models and use them as an API. Why it is important? Think about humans' brain. When we use our brain, sometimes we need to make a decision in a fraction of a second. For instance, it's a fight or flight situation. We have a fraction of a second to make a decision. So we need a small model. We need it to be fast. We might use one model. Sometimes we need a more complex model for kind of a step-by-step thinking, to have a long chain of thought and stuff like that. So in the same way, we will need different models with different tasks. There is no one model to rule it all. We need different models for different tasks, and it will be similar to databases. We had like dozens of databases, and in early days, we might thought that, okay, this database might be good for everything that I need. But through the time, we find out that for every task, we need different types of databases. So this is the same, and we are adding more and more leading models to the model collection of Amazon Bedrock. Apart from the models, we have to talk about vector databases. Why vector databases are important in this topic? Basically, large language models are stateless. They don't have any kind of memory. So when you have a conversation with them, or when you want to get access to your data sources, you need some kind of storage that can be used for lookup and finding information pretty fast. So vector databases are optimized for finding similar items or entities. That's why we need vector database in LLM solutions. So customers want to have their vector database close to their data sources. So that's why we are adding support for vector database and vector engines in different types of databases that we have. We have it in Amazon OpenSearch, Aurora, MongoDB, DocumentDB, and it's coming soon to, I think, Postgres on RDS. So we have our large language model. We have our vector database. What about customizations? When you have a large language models, there are different ways to optimize the answers based on your business needs. The first step is prompt engineering. You give the model more context about what you want to do. You describe how you want to take actions step by step, and basically improve your prompt. That's prompt engineering. The next step is bringing data from your data sources to the model, so the model can give you relevant answers. And this is called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. So that's the second step. If we don't get good answers with RAG and we still need to kind of optimize the answers, we can do fine-tuning the models, meaning that we fine-tune the parameters, but we are not changing the main model itself. So that's the higher step. When we don't get good enough answers with RAG and prompt engineering, then we go for fine-tuning. And this is usually useful when you have a specific task that is not supported well by your model. And also we added support for continuous training, meaning that if you are doing training on your model, you can add new data to your training data set and continuously improve the results of your large language model. But overall, this is only needed when you have done your prompt engineering, when you have done your RAG correctly, and then we will look into these further steps. So after productionizing your model in Amazon Bedrock, you want to monitor the model. You want to compare different models with each other. You want to see how it performs based on your metrics or based on evaluation of your users. Amazon Bedrock allows you to define a human in the loop process to evaluate your models. For instance, you can say, okay, I have this investment recommendations based on this input data, and the model generated this recommendation. Now I give this like 200 recommendations to my own professionals and say, hey, is it a poor recommendation or is it a good recommendation? And then based on that evaluation, the model can optimize itself. So model evaluation will be an integrated part of using large language models in production, because otherwise we don't have visibility into the performance of the model in terms of quality. And you can define your own metrics in the system for the evaluation and monitor it through the time. So right now we have the model in production. We have it optimized, but maybe it's not used the way that we want it to be used. Maybe we have a model for creating financial advice, but our employees are asking it, should I buy Bitcoin today or not, right? So we want to have some guardrails to ensure that the model is not generating the type of the content that we don't want. There are some predefined guardrails that you can enable. For instance, you can say, don't generate sexual content or violent content or content related other types of content. But also we have a way for you to define the guardrails where you can describe the topic that you want to be filtered, and then Amazon Bedrock will filter that on the input and on the output side. And instead of you spending money on the on kind of unintended usage, it will be blocked and will be moderated. So you have a moderation system built in Amazon Bedrock. So we have the large language model and we have the guardrails in place. Now let's say we want to take some actions. For instance, we have the conversation with an end user. Now the model should create a ticket in your Zendesk, for instance, should refund the customer, for instance. How we can orchestrate an action or set up actions in Amazon Bedrock. Amazon Bedrock provides a way to orchestrate actions from the model itself, and it's called Amazon Bedrock agents. And the way that it works is that you get your external APIs, let's say Zendesk. Each of these APIs, they have open API schema definition. You get that definition to the system and provide your endpoints. And based on that definition and that endpoints, your model can take actions. For instance, inside your prompt, you say, if this happened and this happened and this happened, then refund the customer. And here is the API for refunding the customer. So we call a Lambda function, we call the external API when we do the refund process. So it has a built-in mechanism to define the action, and this will enable you to integrate it with your systems and orchestrate actions in Amazon Bedrock. I won't talk about PartyRock, but PartyRock is a kind of free environment that you can share with your family, friends, and kids. It's a free generative AI application maker. I used it for an example. I made flashcards for my certification exam. I said, okay, give me 100 flashcards for machine learning exam, and it created flashcards for me. You can pick a topic, create an app, and share it. It's free, and you can log in with your social media login and use it for free. How much time we have?
Right.
10 minutes. Okay, cool. Code Whisperer. We talked about Code Whisperer a little bit. Basically, it's your coding companion. It can help you to write the code based on the descriptions. It's integrated into popular IDEs like Visual Studio Code and PyCharm and JetBrains solutions. And also, it can help you to remediate security issues in your code. We also announced support for infrastructure as a code, like Terraform code writing in reInvent. So it's not just like program code. You can write infrastructure code with Code Whisperer. Okay. So now we go back to the base of the stack, Amazon SageMaker. This is for the customers who want to build and deploy their own models. The previous solutions that we talked about, the Amazon Q and Amazon Bedrock, you are using third-party company models or Amazon models. But in SageMaker, you can build your own models, you can train your own models and deploy your own models. The major announcement that affects training of large language models and other foundational models was introduction of hyperpods. Basically, hyperpods are pre-configured solutions that can do distributed training for your models. For large language models, you need an environment that can kind of distribute the model training between different containers on the cluster, pause the operation if needed, do the checkpoint if needed, and then resume the process if needed. So it helps you to pause the process, do some debugging, do some optimization, resume the process. And this will allow you to train the models as big as like hundreds of billions of parameters. Okay. The SageMaker Studio experience, it has been kind of redesigned. If you are using AWS, you probably got some notification these days that SageMaker Studio Classic is being retired and you have to upgrade. So the new experience has added Visual Studio Code support. It added new versions of different frameworks, for instance, different latest version of PyTorch, latest version of Python, TensorFlow in the images. Also, the user experience has changed. So if you have tried SageMaker and you were kind of lost in the environment, I suggest you to give it another chance and go to SageMaker console and see this new user experience. It's improved a lot. And to support that, I made this slide. This is a TLDR, too long didn't read slide about all of the updates that are done in SageMaker. There's no way that we can cover all of this in our meeting, but I'm saying that if you have a substandard experience with SageMaker, it's time to give it another chance and go and try it again. We have added integration for model evaluation to SageMaker. It's called SageMaker Clarify, and the user experience is updated in Clarify. And right now, it's added support for foundational models and large language models. About SageMaker Canvas, basically SageMaker Canvas is an environment that allows you to create the models and train the models without any kind of coding. It's useful when you have a typical scenario that doesn't need much of data science experience. So we have added support for foundational models here in Amazon SageMaker Canvas, and also it has been added to Amazon SageMaker QuickSight, Amazon QuickSight, to provide direct integration for machine learning models. Do you have time for AI services? Or? Yeah. Okay. So generative AI services are integrated to our own services too. We have started using it and integrating it into our own services. We have introduced a new service named Health Scribe, for instance, which allows medical practitioners to transcribe their conversations with patients and summarize their notes. That is one of the time-consuming tasks for the doctors and clinicians. We have added PII detection to comprehend. We added toxicity detection to transcribe. This one is very popular for companies who deal with user-generated contents. For instance, if you have some social media, some kind of reviews on your website is generated, it can detect the toxicity like violence, sexual content, and stuff like that, and flag it. If you have any kind of public website or public content that you want to check and moderate, for the automated moderation, Amazon Transcribe toxicity detection can be useful and help you. Also, for companies who are using Amazon Rekognition for identity check, for instance, for entrance and exit monitoring, we have added face liveness detection. So if you have some kind of identity verification system, you can get a photo of the ID and video of that person and check the liveness of that video. This is very good for companies who want to do identity verification online. Also, we talked about Health Scribe. Amazon Personalized also affected by foundational models. When we are personalizing experience of users, one of the questions that we always get is that what is the best next action for the customers? You sign up for a website, after a few minutes, you get a promotion offer. After a few minutes, you get an email survey for understanding how you did well or how you didn't, how was your experience? So it's kind of brute forcing actions on company's side, and we don't get a good experience. So with Amazon Personalized Next Best Action recipe, you can find out what is the best action during the customer's journey. For instance, if the users sign up, okay, let's get the survey 3 days after the sign up, not immediately after the sign up. So it can use machine learning to optimize our actions intervals and improve the customer's journey. We added teams for recommendations, meaning that you can generate content personalized based on Amazon Personalized model and large language models. And also we have added OpenSearch integration, meaning that if you are using OpenSearch for the search on your website, you can re-rank the search results and make it personalized. Instead of only sticking to keyword relevance, you can personalize the search for each user and get the personalized result for the search. Amazon Lex is a tool that allows you to build chatbots. Amazon Lex Bot Builder now supports building bots with descriptions. You can just type the descriptions of the bot that you want to make, and Amazon Lex generates that bot for you. So this can be a time saver for you if you are working on making bots on AWS. Amazon transcribe, let me skip this one. Okay. Thank you so much. I know there was too many slides to digest. I apologize for that. But if you have any questions, do you want to do
Yeah.
Q&A now?
No,
or-
great stuff. So one thing that I did want to do, I know that everybody probably came here to learn about generative AI. We'd love to kind of just talk about and explore some of the different generative AI use cases that we're kind of seeing different customers have. So probably the one that I see most common in my customers is that they want to have like an internal knowledge base, something that like internal people, instead of calling IT, or if they need to look up something about their account, or they want to know, hey, what building has such and such. Customers really want to leverage that as kind of a way to kind of dip their toe in the water, if you will, for how to get started with generative AI. And as Mehdy mentioned, we do have the AWS knowledge base, which does allow for that to happen. So basically, you can point it at that content and then allow it to automatically search that content. So, you know, when you think about going online and using, you know, like Anthropic's Claude or some of the other popular generative AI tools, you know, it's this chatbot type of interface, and it can't look at your own corporate data. It can't answer things about your paycheck or your customers or where things are at within, you know, which building has the best copier repair center or whatever it is. And that's what allowing it to do that retrieval augmented generation really changes. So having it tap into your data, whether that be a database or files or a SharePoint site or whatever it might be. So that's probably one of the first use cases that I've seen customers want to explore. I'm curious, is there anybody in the audience who wants to share maybe some idea that they're considering using generative AI for? I'm going to go ahead and get back in. So this slide deck started with 154 slides, no joke. I get it down to 20. So I found 20 things that I think are really cool that I think you guys are going to be interested in. And I'm going to try to relate it to how it's helping customers that I know about, like their stories and stuff. So my name's Scott Hewitt, also a senior solutions architect based out of Chicago. I cover enterprise customers based in the Chicago area generally. And I've been with AWS for over 7 years. So I've seen a lot of different customer environments, have a lot of different stories, helped a customer migrate a mainframe into AWS. So I've seen a lot of different things. All right, so I've got a couple different categories. I think like 4 categories or so. Kind of go through that to kind of see some of the different updates. The first one here is for our Graviton 4 chipset. Who here knows what Graviton is, like at its core? Like what is different about Graviton from a Intel x86?
It's an ARM processor.
It's an ARM, exactly. And why is that beneficial?
Well, it's got a short instruction set, so it should theoretically be faster.
Faster, lower energy,
Yep.
and runs very differently. So the great things about it is that you can get things done faster at a lower cost. And so for applications that have been compiled to run on ARM, what we're seeing is that they're able to run faster than their Intel equivalent. So for example, a database with like Elasticache or a database with a Postgres database, you can literally in RDS, when you choose your instance type, you can choose a Graviton CPU and it will run faster and at a lower cost for you. Now, what's the catch? Well, it is a totally different type of architecture. So Windows cannot run on it. So you cannot, you know, get your, you know, AMI out for Windows 2019 and expect to run that on there. And so a lot of things have been compiled for ARM over the years. And so we have Amazon Linux that can run on it. You know, all the major tools that you're probably leveraging in a Linux type of environment are probably already pre-compiled to run in an ARM environment. So if you're not already taking advantage of it for some of our managed services, our managed database, so RDS or Aurora RDS, or for Elasticache, or for OpenSearch, and there's others. If you're using any of those services, I recommend that you give this a try take a look at what the cost savings would be and maybe do some benchmarking to see what the performance benefit would be for you. It's not faster in every single situation, just like anything, it kind of depends on how you're using it. I don't remember the exact stats, but it's like, if you're doing this language in Nginx, it's like, 4 times faster. If you're doing this language, then it's, 2.5 times faster. And then this one is 0.9 times as fast. So it can depend a little bit. So that's why we always recommend benchmarking everything. So we did actually announce a new version, Graviton 4, which is even bigger, better, faster, stronger, cheaper. That's kind of like how we like to do things. And so you'll be able to take advantage of that soon. It is in preview. Unfortunately, there's a little preview graphic that's going to pop up there occasionally that you guys can't see. So I apologize. Some things are in preview. Most of what I'm going to be talking about is in GA, but there are some things. I'll try to remember to point that out. Workspaces thin client. Who knows what Amazon Workspaces is? Only one hand. Okay. So Amazon Workspaces is basically end user compute. If you are familiar with like Citrix and allowing users to have a desktop environment when they need to connect in, that's essentially what Amazon Workspaces is. Basically, if you have users that need to be able to run an application and they need to have low latency to it, if your servers are in AWS, you can also put your clients in AWS with Amazon Workspaces, and then your users can be anywhere in the world and they'll experience a low latency access to that application. I have customers who are leveraging it literally for development teams in India that are running servers that are in Ohio, and because they needed to have a very low latency experience. Because all we're sending across is the the graphical bits. It can actually be very performant. So what we announced at reInvent is a Workspaces thin client. So basically a small cube-shaped device. If you've ever seen the Amazon, what was it, Fire TV, what? Fire TV Cube? Oh, so you guys know Fire TV Cube. Okay, cool. So it's basically that hardware.
It is.
It is that hardware, just with a different bit of software on it. And so what's cool about it is it's this tiny thing. You basically would need a keyboard, a mouse, a monitor in this little box, which I forget the cost. It's like $200 or something like that. So relatively inexpensive. So it's a ways that you don't have to deploy laptops everywhere, a $1,000 laptop. This way you can get a secured lockdown environment. People are not going to have access to, connect media. You can restrict whether people can, use USB media and stuff like that. So it's a very cool way to get connectivity to workspaces without having the need to bring your own laptop for it. All right. Who here is familiar with Amazon EFS? Are you going to raise your hand for all these? I love it. I love it. Your essay is doing a great job, then. Okay, a couple more hands. Thank you. Thank you. So I have a storage background and a networking background, and it still blows my mind some of the things that we can do with our managed services. So Amazon EFS stands for Elastic File System. So it is for NFS-based mount points, so like Linux type of storage. But what is so cool about it is that it's kind of like an S3 bucket. I'm assuming most of you are familiar with S3, where you can put in as much data as you want in this system, and it's going to be able to handle it. So if you've never done this before, you mount an EFS mount point and you do a df-h, it shows up as 8 exabytes. So you got plenty of capacity there to put whatever you need. So for any of your NFS-based applications, this is one of the new features that we have here. So we've had for a while now 2 different tiers of performance and cost. So basically, standard tier is going to be your fastest tier for your active data. Also coming in at the highest cost, so 30 cents per gigabyte per month. And then it's going to be the sub-millisecond latencies. We've had the infrequent access, which is significantly lower cost, the 1.6 cents, and still being at a very high performance. And then some customers said, you know what, we'd love it if we could have an even lower cost tier. So now we came out with the archive tier, which is more for the cold data, where we define that by if you need it a few times a year. And then it's going to be coming in at half the cost of the infrequent access. Yes?
Kind of like Glacier, is there a retrieval cost associated?
I can't remember. Did you say yes? Thanks. I know that Glacier has a retrieval cost. I don't recall if this does. Now, when you do request it, it actually automatically puts it back in the next tier. So like in S3, there's, wait, there's not a, I don't want to say the wrong thing.
It's cool.
So the idea being that it's cheaper to store it, and then that's why you don't want to be, it's something that you want to get a couple times a year as opposed to like every week, because we're going to bump it back up to the higher cost tier.
Okay.
Yeah. What's cool is that, so with my storage background, I used to have, I won't say the vendor, but these big, huge racks full of disks. And then next to it, I had big, huge racks full of cheaper disks, right? So I had the higher performance and the lower performance. And what I was trying to do was save money by putting more and more data on the lower cost. I had to spend millions of dollars to do that. This is a checkbox, and you guys can take advantage of that. So this is one of the things that just blows my mind about how we are helping customers to save money with these cool things. All right. Next. This is just a chart just so you can kind of understand some of the different levels of performance.
Some retrieval cost for a throughput and data access cost all in EFS, and there is some with archival as well.
I didn't hear the end.
There is some for EFS archival read costs as well.
EFS archival read costs. So there is a charge for that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So it's good to have a teammate helping out. So we have tons of different storage options in AWS. I literally had a customer email me yesterday and say, how do I back up 20 terabytes of data? And I'm like, I need to know more. What are you trying to do? Because we have so many options. We're really proud of the fact that we give you options. We have these building blocks for you guys to create your own applications on. And so depending on your latency needs, depending on your storage needs, depending on how you're going to access the data, we have different performance tiers. So the very fastest is going to be instant storage. That's going to be like NVMe SSDs inside the server. Blazing fast, we're talking microseconds, 100 to 200 microseconds. Say again?
Persistent.
Yeah, non-persistent. That is a very good point. So super, super high performance. All the way down to Glacier Deep Archive, where you're waiting 12 to 48 hours to get the data back. So I just wanted to point out that the next slide here is going to be for S3 Express One Zone. I'm going to explain that in a second. But you can see we've actually added in another layer here, making S3 even faster, because S3 has been excellent for really good performance, but it hasn't been maybe quite as fast as some of these other block-based storage subsystems. So now that you understand that, we announced Amazon S3 Express One Zone. So the idea here being that S3, the S3 standard, has always been writing data to at least 3 separate availability zones. We have 6 copies of the data, at least 2 in each availability zone. And you know what's cool is that even in in Virginia, where we've got multiple 5 availability zones, sometimes you're going to be across even more facilities. But anyway, the idea here, to get lower latency, you need to do fewer writes, right? And going up, there's no way for us to shorten network latency. That's just the speed of light that we're talking about. So we basically say, okay, well, let's just write all the data into one facility. And so it's all going to be within one availability zone. Now we're still going to have the multiple redundant copies of the data, but the idea, we also then designed it for very, very fast access. So when you have use cases for big data analytics and machine learning, where you need even higher performance than a traditional S3 bucket can handle, that's where you're going to be able to take advantage of this. The other thing is that there's a different way to connect to it. So there's a couple things that you need to learn about how to connect to it. Not every application right now is going to support it. We did make it easy to work with, like in our CLI and APIs and things like that. And if you've ever worked with it before, with S3 standard, and you had to deal with like the prefixes and like how am I going to spread the data out onto multiple prefixes to get the right performance, you don't have to worry about any of that now. We're basically giving you all the performance you could possibly need in any prefix. So for those very high-end applications. All right, so I was filling out my profile on Meetup last night, and it said, what is your favorite AWS service? And I was just like, Amazon Aurora. I think Amazon Aurora is so dang cool. So if you don't know what it is and why it's so cool, is that we started off with MySQL and then went to Postgres, but we basically took the database engine and the storage layer and we separated them. And so we have the front-end compute that you can use to connect to and run your queries. And then all the back-end work, all the way that we store the data, it's a completely magical cloud storage subsystem. you'll see that there's familiarity with how we do things with S3. We store 6 copies of your data in at least 3 availability zones. We block it up into 10 gigabyte slices and put that across all of these different storage nodes. So we've literally got thousands and thousands of storage nodes acting as the backend storage for Aurora. That's allowed us to do really cool things like basically, I call it instant read replicas. Is not technically instant, but basically, because we've decoupled the storage from the compute, you can basically turn on another read replica and it points at that same copy of the data and you've got access to it. Also like quote unquote instant clones. If you need another clone of your environment, you don't have to copy the 16 terabytes of data. You just have, you basically pointing to that exact original copy of the data and then we'll save the changes. Anyway, we took that up a layer. So all those cool things I was talking about is kind of like in the back on storage, but now we moved it up. So for customers who have super high performance needs with writes to a database, historically, if you're basically got the biggest server you can have in Amazon Aurora, you can't vertically scale any higher. With one writer, you basically then have to say, well, I need to split my database to multiple different database servers. That's called sharding. We now are able to do that for you with Aurora Limitless. So we basically put another layer up on top, this Aurora DB shard group with these transaction routers and shards. And so what's super cool, by the way, there is a preview icon up there. So it's not shipping yet, but it is in preview. As you connect to it and you're working with it, we will detect the hotspots. So you tell us basically what key should we work on? Do we want to do it based on the customer ID or the zip code or whatever it is that we should be looking at? And then we'll literally split that up into multiple different shards, which will then go to different compute, which will go down a different disk. So you can basically go from, having one server to basically having, 15 write servers handling your database. So that's Aurora Limitless. Super cool for those very high write workloads in Aurora. I am happy to take questions now and again. So if you guys have something, please just raise your hand. Yes.
Does the Aurora, I know it's preview, but is it elastic? Does it come back to the lowest?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it did. Yeah. So we'll basically, just like most auto scaling things, as we see it getting hot, we'll shard it out. And then if it goes way down, we'll shard it back. I don't know the time in which we automatically scale it back down.
Okay.
But yeah. Amazon Elasticache serverless. Who here has ever worked with Elasticache? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of the same hands. Okay. So Elasticache is our in-memory cache. So we've got 2 different engines. We've got Memcache and Redis. And so for those ultra low latency access things, so when you've got a server farm and you need to keep some sort of shared session information, something that would be, maybe you're doing it on every single API call, you want the absolute lowest latency that you can get for it. That's where Elasticache is used. So it's a managed service for Redis and Memcached. And what we've done now is we now have Elasticache serverless. So kind of seeing a common thread with us, we're doing more and more services as being serverless, which allows you to basically just use it how you need to, and it'll scale up with all the compute that needs to be there and then scale down. If you've never worked with Redis before, it's kind of similar to OpenSearch, if you work with that before. We shard the data on the back end. And so basically, when you needed to add more nodes, you'd have to decide, hey, I'm going to add more nodes. It's going to move the data around. It would take some time. You get that performance and you pay for it for a while. Now we're just going to do that for you automatically. And you also don't have to worry about the code upgrades on the boxes either. So we'll handle all that for you. So if you have any needs for in-memory caching, definitely take a look at the serverless version of Elasticache.
Wait, who uses Elasticache? I missed the hand.
There's somebody in the back. Yes.
$100.
Look at that. See, it helps to raise your hand. I did see that there are other types of prizes besides just Amazon credits too. So
Can go use more Elasticsearch.
yeah, absolutely. Vector database support. So Mehdy mentioned a bit of vector database information. I did just want to point out that we did a whole bunch of announcements on vector database. This is very important when you're doing Gen AI and you're trying to, it basically is keeping track of how closely related are these things. So it's helpful when the model is actually trying to come back with a response. And the way that storing it in a vector database is like basically how it wants to be able to read it. So we have several of those announced. All right, Redshift is our data warehouse. Petabyte scale, decoupled compute from storage, can scale to whatever your needs are. And one of the things that surprises a lot of customers is that we've been able to improve the performance of Redshift time and time and time again over the past few years. Customers, because it's a managed service, we can see how the query plan is written, and we can actually optimize that on the back end. So you don't have to change your query, but we can make it faster on the back end. So not only have we been improving the performance of those queries in general, but now we've actually made it so that if you need more performance and you're willing to pay for it occasionally, then we actually have an option here where you can basically have an option where you can say, hey, I definitely want the best performance you could possibly give me, even if it's going to cost a little bit more. Or, hey, only speed it up if it's free. Because with Redshift, we actually have kind of like these burst credits available to you. Kind of like if you're familiar with like the T2, T3 instance types, kind of similar to that within Redshift, where we can give you additional compute for, I think it's an hour a day by default. And then if you want to go beyond that, then there's an extra cost for that. So, but with the serverless AI scaling, that's even adding this additional feature where you can kind of like choose, and it kind of understands what you're trying to work with to make it even more performant. All right, zero ETL integration for Amazon Redshift. So I have a customer they have a 20-year-old application that was SQL Server and .NET and running on a single server, and they had hundreds of these. It was a SaaS application, single tenant. They completely rewrote the entire thing, being serverless, so using Lambda and using Amazon Aurora Postgres. And they've adopted Redshift for their reporting engine. And they said, hey, Scott, how do I get the data? So like if somebody makes a change in the production application and it's written to my Aurora Postgres database, how do I get it down to Redshift as fast as possible? So we've had options for quite a while, leveraging Glue or leveraging DMS, Database Migration Service, to move that data, but it's usually tens of minutes to get that data moved. So we've been adding zero ETL capabilities to a bunch of our services. Zero ETL, extract, transform, load. The idea being that we're going to take, when you make a change on the source database system, we can automatically push it down to something like Redshift. So this is now allowing my customer to have the end user make a change to something in their application, and within seconds, that data is now available within Redshift. So it's not a 10-minute wait anymore. It was actually quite a heartache for them for a while, because they're like, so we kind of need to have like two different user interfaces, one for the data that you change within 10 minutes, and then one for the data that's older than 10 minutes. And this is now able to change that for them. So we actually have it shipping now for Aurora MySQL, and then we have it in preview for Postgres, MySQL, and DynamoDB. You're going to see this. We're going to be adding more and more of this to more applications over time. I will say it is a bit light on the transform. It's more of, right now, it's more of just a, hey, let's take the data and move it over kind of in the same format. So you might need to change some queries to get it in more the Redshift way of seeing it, but it is a way to get it there very, very fast. Okay, Amazon Glue is our ETL engine, if you will. It's basically designed for running like Spark and PySpark type of jobs, Python jobs, to actually do a lot of transformations of your data. And we added Amazon data quality, or Glue data quality, I think it was like a year or two ago. I had a customer write a blog and speak on it. The idea being, when you get data from like a third-party vendor or from an old ERP system, and you can't really trust that it's in the right format, or maybe you're expecting this to be a 6-digit integer and you need to make sure that it's actually a 6-digit integer. You can run the data through Amazon Glue data quality and verify that it is, in fact, what it needs to be. And so what we've added in is some anomaly detection and some dynamic rules to make that even easier for you to work with. We also, if you're more of a, if you're not really a Python and SQL type of user or Spark, and you want to work with a simpler type of interface, we also have what's known as Glue Data Brew, which is more of like the data analyst type of layer. It's almost like a BI tool that will allow you to run data quality rules as well as do ETL type of work on it. So I have several customers who are needing that type of capability for people who don't know how to write Python and PySpark and stuff. So that's the Glue Data Brew. So it's kind of under the family of Glue. All right, networking and security. We have a couple updates here. Who here has used IAM Access Analyzer in the past? Cool, cool. All right, a lot of the same hands. Okay. So IAM Access Analyzer is a really cool tool that we came out with a few years back, which will help you to understand how your IAM roles and how your IAM users are being used, and how that relates to the permissions that you've given them. So basically, if you were to give very open permissive permissions and then you had a user using your application and you want to see, okay, well, what type of API calls do they make? It can actually understand and look through the history of the API calls and make recommendations on what you should change those permissions to. Well, now we've actually come up with a feature for unused access analysis. And so basically it can then go in there and find, okay, well, what users and roles and things are unused that I should probably go and do some cleanup on. So it's able to take advantage of that now, and it can scan your accounts for the unused access and give you that report so you know what you need to go and clean up. So this is kind of helping you take care of some of the stuff that you should have been doing, but you're probably not doing. So just trying to keep your security teams happy. All right, application load balance for security and resilience. I'm going to talk about this one on the right, automatic target weights. I actually wrote a blog on this that was released during reInvent. That's actually my screenshot, I think. And so the really cool thing here, if you've got a web farm behind an application load balancer, and by default, it's going to be doing like round robin, so sending traffic to all of your web servers. Let's say you've got 8 web servers, and one of them is starting to have a hard time processing things. You're starting to get a bunch of 500 errors being returned. What automatic target weights does is it looks at TCP errors, TLS errors, and like HTTP return code 500 errors. And it will literally start sending less and less traffic to that server. So as basically the algorithm could change over time, but basically we start having the amount of traffic to it. And then a few seconds later, we'll have the amount of traffic again. If we keep getting errors, we're basically going to get it down to almost no traffic, but we'll still keep a little bit there because we want to see if it's going to recover. And as it recovers, we'll slowly kind of add traffic back onto it. So it's kind of similar to auto scaling type of things. So what's really nice about this is that it can take a while for a new server to be put in, but you want to be able to reduce the amount of errors that your customers are going to be having very quickly. So this can respond very, very quickly to that. There are a couple things about if you're doing cross zone and how many nodes you have in your target groups. So if you only have 2 web servers, we're not going to run on it. This is more for if you've got I think 3 is the minimum, and typically higher than that. A really cool way to have your end users have a better experience. And it's a free feature. You just turn it on. All right, cloud operations. Amazon CloudWatch logs infrequent access. So a lot of customers tell me that CloudWatch is a fantastic tool. They love all the data that they have available in it, but occasionally they can be surprised by the cost. So if you just start sending a ton of data to CloudWatch logs, well, we've got to store it and we've got to index it. We got to make it searchable and everything. So it costs us a lot of compute as well as storage. So we have to charge for that. But some customers said, can you give us something like CloudWatch logs, but at a lower cost? And so that's what this is. We came out with CloudWatch logs infrequent access, which is basically, it doesn't have all the features. So we've got a nice table on, I forget it's the blog or the documentation. There's like a dozen features that CloudWatch logs does. And about 5 of them, I think, is what's in the CloudWatch logs infrequent access. So you can't set up like metrics to alert you based on something that's in there. So we're not going to run compute against it. This is more for if you want all your web server logs in here and you might need to come back and review it, this is perfect for it. It's not something that if you are constantly, like you can't do, what is the API called? The get, I forget the exact name for it, but the get call for doing it. I have some customers who are doing thousands of get calls per minute because they're just trying to pull all the data out. I'm like, why don't you just put it where you really want it to be instead of just pulling it out? But anyway, for CloudWatch logs, at a lower cost, a little bit less features, but this could be a great option for you to save some money. And this is available today. There's no preview icon on it. All right, so I'm not a developer. I went to school for it, and so I can dabble, I can write some scripts, but I can never seem to remember how to write a query in CloudWatch logs insights. So the syntax, I do it so infrequently that I just can't remember it, okay? So I love this new feature. So we basically added in GenAI so that I can say, hey, show me all of the, like I did it before for like some ALB logs, like show me what the top 5 IP addresses are grouped by hour. And it wrote the query for me. And so if you just need to figure out how to write it and you don't remember how to write it, we do have examples in the console and in documentation, but this really saved me and helped some of my customers recently too. So way, way, way easier to write those queries. All right. And no customer has ever told me before, Scott, please tell me how to spend more money on AWS. They're always saying, how can I save money, right? They love what we provide them, all the capabilities, but they're always looking for how can I optimize my spend. And so we actually announced a couple different features recently called, specifically around optimizing your costs. So this is the Cost Optimization Hub. This is kind of like the Cost Explorer, but it's going to roll it up for all the different accounts and really kind of summarize it and give you those savings opportunities that can actually go across the different accounts in your organization. So this is basically a single pane of glass to kind of look at all of that. You can group the related records together and you can get all those recommendations. Because I've got customers with hundreds and thousands of accounts, and it can get pretty complicated to know where they should be applying different reserved instances of savings plans. And so for them to have a single view of this, they love it. You do have to go in and turn it on. So just be aware, and it does take like 24 hours before you can start seeing the data. So if you have access to, and you're allowed to make changes, I recommend go in there, change that tonight, and take a look at it later this week.
Has anyone enabled it? Has anyone looked at it? Is anyone interested in it? I have some builder cards. They were described to me as Magic the Gathering, but for AWS.
Oh, pretty cool.
I'm thinking you would-
All right, excellent. Thank you.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, she was reading through some of the cards during the break. And I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. So I gotta figure out where I can order those. All right, another one, cost and usage dashboard. So we've had basically this type of thing around for a few years. It's typically reserved for the customers who have enterprise support historically. And we called it the Kudos dashboard. I forget what the whole acronym is, CUDOS. But basically, it's getting you your cost and usage data. I forget what the OS is. But then allowing you to see that information in QuickSight, our BI reporting tool. So we basically took the really good parts of that and made it way easier for you to use. So since customers love the ability to kind of change and manipulate and make the dashboards the way that they want in QuickSight, this is basically then getting the data into QuickSight without you having to worry about the Athena queries that are going on the back end and stuff like that. So making it easier to get a really nice cost and usage dashboard. And before I finish, one last thing on cost. We announced back, I think it was in August of last year, that starting this month, so as of February 1st, we are charging for public IPv4 addresses. So we are encouraging customers to make smart decisions when it comes to using public IP addresses. So that's really the reason behind it, the cost of us buying public IPs is skyrocketed. And we want to help you to start migrating over to IPv6, essentially. So there's a small charge. It's basically $3.60 per month, approximately. So it's not a massive cost, but something to be aware of.
Per IP address.
Per IP. Yep. So one thing to point out there, if you're running like an ALB, you're going to have a minimum of 2 of those because 1 in each AZ. Great. Well, that is all the prepared content. I'm pretty close to time. I was supposed to be done at 6:30. It's 6:31. So I thank you all so much for listening to this. All the non-Gen AI stuff. Any last questions? Any last giveaways?
I have a question.
Yeah.
A question regarding a CloudWatch logs, like,
Yeah.
is there any AI integrated with the CloudWatch logs that we don't have to write the queries to analyze the logs?
I don't think we built it into the console, but you could certainly go and use it within within your IDE Code Whisperer and just ask it for helping with how to do that type of query, but it's not built in yet. Yeah. Any other things we need to give away?
One more giveaway. So lovely presented. If anyone, does anyone know Jeff Smith, Chicago
I'll ask a
tech
question.
leader?
They want to book, I have a question.
Oh, you have a question? Okay, Kiran, it's a question.
Anyone of you watch any of the reInvent videos? Yes, what is your favorite one?
Yes, the reInvent videos?
Yeah.
What, my favorite?
Yeah.
Always Werner,
Or-
always, but give it to somebody else.
Well, you've been taking notes very seriously.
Yes, you have, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, if you haven't watched reInvent videos, everything we talked about here, there are announcement, sessions that we do, pre-build sessions. Highly recommend going through them. That's how we learned AWS before joining and when we started working in AWS, right? That's a very good way to learn. You can watch at your own speed, at your own time. So we still do that.
There's also a great website if anybody's interested. It's called AWS Stash, one word.